Inheritance records showed assets that were never real. The phone call came on a Tuesday morning in March. Jennifer Hartwell was standing in her kitchen in Sacramento, California, halfway through making her daughter's lunch, when her aunt's voice came through the speaker telling her that her father was dead. She expected grief. She expected shock. What she didn't expect was what her aunt said next. "Jen, you need to get here. There's something wrong with the estate." Jennifer's father, Robert Hartwell, had died of a heart attack at 6. He'd been a commercial real estate broker for 33 years, successful by most measures, respected in his field. He owned properties. He had investments. He'd always spoken about making sure his children were taken care of. But when Jennifer arrived at her father's home in Roseville, 3 days later, her brother Marcus was already sitting at the dining room table with a stack of papers, and the expression on his face made her stomach drop. "The portfolio," Marcus said, not looking up. "None of it's real." Jennifer set down her purse. "What do you mean? None of it's real?" Marcus finally met her eyes. "I mean the assets Dad told us about, the investment accounts, the commercial properties in Arizona, the partnership stake in that development company. They're all on paper. All documented, all listed in the estate inventory the attorney gave us yesterday." He pushed a document across the table. "And according to every bank and title company I've called today, none of them exist." That was 4 months ago. 4 months since Jennifer Hartwell learned that the inheritance she'd been counting on, the financial security her father had promised, the assets that had been meticulously recorded in legal documents, were completely fabricated. 4 months since her family began to unravel, trying to understand how a man could spend years building an elaborate fiction about his own wealth, and why. This is the story of what they found. Let's go back to the beginning. Robert Hartwell was born in 1954 in Modesto, California, the second of 3 children. His father worked in agriculture. His mother was a schoolteacher. By all accounts, it was a modest, stable upbringing. Robert was bright, ambitious, and according to his sister Carol, obsessed from a young age with the idea of wealth. He used to draw pictures of houses, Carol told me when I spoke to her in July. Not like a kid draws houses. Detailed floor plans. He'd label the rooms: pool, tennis court, 6-car garage. He was 9 years old. Robert put himself through Sacramento State, graduated with a degree in business. MB, 26, had his real estate license. He married Linda Peterson in 1982. Jennifer was born in 1985. Marcus followed in 1988. Linda worked as a dental hygienist. Robert sold commercial properties. They lived in a comfortable 3-bedroom house in a good school district. They took vacations to Tahoe. They weren't rich, but they were doing well. Dad always talked about his deals, Jennifer sighed. At dinner, he'd tell us about the shopping centers he was brokering, the office buildings, the industrial parks. He made it sound exciting, like he was building something. In 1997, when Jennifer was 12, Robert told the family he was forming a partnership to develop a mixed-use property in Scottsdale, Arizona. He said he was putting in $200,000. He showed them architectural renderings. He talked about projected returns. "I remember Mom asking where the money was coming from," Jennifer sighed. "Dad said he'd been saving, that he'd refinanced some things." She seemed satisfied. The Scottsdale project became part of family lore. Robert would give updates. Permitting delays, construction timelines, market conditions. It sounded legitimate. It sounded real. In 2003, Linda was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. She fought it for 18 months. Robert took time off work to care for her. He paid for treatments that insurance didn't cover. In April 2005, Linda died. She was 49 years old. After Linda's death, Robert seemed to throw himself into work. He sold the family home and bought a smaller condo in Roseville. Jennifer was away at UC Davis. Marcus was finishing high school. Robert told them he was doing fine, that he was focused on building their future. He started talking more about investments, Marcus said. He'd mentioned accounts he was opening, properties he was acquiring. He made it sound like he was really building wealth, like he wanted us to be set when he was gone. In 2009, her name was Diane Foster, a paralegal he'd met through work. The marriage surprised Jennifer and Marcus. They'd barely known their father was dating anyone. Diane seemed nice enough. Jennifer sighed, but she was younger, only 42 when they got married, and she was careful. She asked a lot of questions about money, about what Dad owned. It felt transactional. Robert and Diane's marriage lasted 6 years. They divorced in 2015. The divorce was apparently amicable. No major assets were contested. Diane moved to Portland. Robert kept the condo. After the divorce, Dad seemed lighter, Marcus said. He was dating again, playing golf. He talked about retiring soon, and he kept telling us not to worry about money. He said he'd made smart investments that we'd be taken care of. In December 2024, Robert had a heart attack while driving home from a client meeting. He crashed his car into a median barrier on Highway 80. He died at the scene. He was 68 years old. The funeral was held on a cold Saturday in January. About 70 people attended, colleagues from real estate, old friends, Robert's sister Carol. His brother had died years earlier. Jennifer and Marcus sat in the front row, accepting condolences from people who spoke about Robert's success, his professionalism, his sharp mind for business. After the service, Robert's attorney, a man named Gerald Weston, approached Jennifer and Marcus. He was in his 60s, formal, carrying a leather briefcase. "I'm very sorry for your loss," Weston said. "Your father was a client for many years. When you're ready, we need to discuss the estate." He left very specific instructions. They met in Weston's office the following Tuesday. The office was downtown Sacramento, wood-paneled, filled with law books. Weston sat behind his desk and opened a file. "Your father's will is straightforward," Weston said. "He left everything to the two of you, divided equally. The estate includes his condominium, a vehicle, personal effects, and several investment accounts and properties." He slid a document across the desk. It was labeled Estate Inventory and Appraisal. Janetta scanned the list. The condo, valued at $420,000. A Duas Mui Dezanovi. Honda Accord. Checking and savings accounts, totaling $63,000. That all made sense. Then she saw the rest. Investment account. Vanguard, $890,000. Investment account. Fidelity, $1,240,000. Commercial property, Scottsdale, Arizona, $2,100,000 partnership interest. Hartwell Morrison Development LLC, $1,680,000 rental property, Sacramento, California, $520,000. The total estate value is listed as $7,913,000. Jennifer looked at Marcus. Marcus looked at the document. Then at Weston. "This can't be right," Marcus said. Weston folded his hands. "I prepared this inventory based on documents your father provided to me over the years. These are the assets he declared as part of his estate planning." "But this..." Jennifer's voice trailed off. "This is almost $8 million. Yes, our father was a real estate broker. He lived in a condo. He drove a Honda." Weston's expression didn't change. "Your father was apparently very successful in his investments. He was also, by his own description, frugal. He wanted to leave you both with financial security." Jennifer and Marcus left the office in a daze. $8 million. It didn't make sense, but there it was, in a legal document, signed by an attorney. "Maybe we just didn't know," Jennifer said in the car. "Maybe Dad was better at investing than we thought." Marcus was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I'm going to make some calls." The first call Marcus made was to Vanguard. He identified himself as Robert Hartwell's son and executor of the estate. He provided the account number listed in the inventory document. The Vanguard representative was polite. She put him on hold. 3 minutes later, She came back on the line. "I'm sorry, sir. We have no record of an account under that number associated with Robert Hartwell." Marcus felt his pulse quicken. "Can you check under just the name?" "Robert James Hartwell." Another hold. "Sir, we do have a Robert James Hartwell in our system. The account was opened in 2008. The current balance is $1,472. Marcus closed his eyes. "Not 890,000. No, sir." He called Fidelity next. Same process. Same result. There was an account. It had been opened in 2011. The current balance was $806, not $1.2 million. Marcus sat at his father's dining room table, the estate inventory in front of him, and felt something cold settling in his chest. He called the Maricopa County Assessor's office in Arizona. He gave them the property address listed for the commercial property in Scottsdale. The property existed. It was a small retail plaza, but the owner of record was a company called Sandstone Properties LLC. It had been owned by Sandstone since 2003. Robert Hartwell's name appeared nowhere in the ownership history. Marcus called the California Secretary of State to search for Hartwell Morrison Development LLC. No such entity was registered. He called the Sacramento County Assessor about the rental property. The address belonged to a single-family home that had been owned by the same elderly couple since 1989. By the time Jennifer arrived that evening, Marcus had confirmed that every major asset listed in their father's estate inventory assets supposedly worth over $6 million did not exist. If stories like this make you think about your own family's secrets, subscribing means you won't miss what we uncover next. Jennifer's first reaction was disbelief, then anger, then a desperate need to find an explanation that made sense. "Maybe he had the account numbers wrong," she said. "Maybe Weston made a mistake." Marcus showed her the documents. Each asset was meticulously detailed. Account numbers, property addresses, dates of acquisition, appraised values. Some of the documents had Robert's signature. Some had notary stamps. "These aren't mistakes," Marcus said. "These are fabrications." They sat in silence. Finally, Jennifer asked the question that would haunt them for months. Why would Dad do this? They contacted Gerald Weston the next morning. Weston seemed genuinely shocked when Marcus explained what they'd discovered. "I prepared that inventory based solely on documents your father provided," Weston said, his voice careful. "He gave me account statements, property deeds, partnership agreement. I had no reason to question their authenticity." "Did you ever verify them?" Marcus asked. A pause. "It's not standard practice to independently verify a client's asset declarations. Attorney-client privilege requires a certain level of trust. So, you just took his word for it." "Your father was my client for 12 years. He seemed credible, professional. He provided documentation." Jennifer leaned forward. "Do you still have those documents?" "Yes. They're in the file. We need to see them." Weston agreed to make copies. 2 days later, Jennifer and Marcus sat in a coffee shop with a thick folder of papers. Inside were bank statements from Vanguard and Fidelity, showing large balances. Property deeds with Robert's name, a partnership agreement for Hartwell Morrison Development, signed and notarized. Appraisal documents, tax records, all of it looked legitimate. Official letterheads, account logos, legal language, but Marcus had already confirmed none of it was real. "He faked all of this," Jennifer said quietly. "Dad created fake documents for years." Marcus was studying a Vanguard statement dated October 2023. "These aren't just rough forgeries. Look at the formatting, the font, the account number structure. He didn't just scribble these. He put work into this." But why? That question led them to start digging into their father's financial history. They obtained authorization to access his actual bank records. They contacted his employer, the real estate brokerage where he'd worked for decades. They spoke to former colleagues. What they found was a man whose financial reality was far different from the story he'd told. Robert Hartwell had earned a decent living as a commercial real estate broker, but he'd never been wealthy. His income over the past 10 years averaged around $90,000 a year. Good, but not exceptional. His actual investment accounts, the ones that really existed, contained less than $15,000 combined. The condo he owned had a mortgage. The equity was real, but there were also debts. A home equity line of credit, drawn nearly to its limit. 3 credit cards with substantial balances. A personal loan from a credit union. When all of Robert's actual assets and debts were tallied, his real net estate was worth approximately $460,000. Not $8 million. Not even $1 million. He was living a normal middle-class life, Marcus said. Maybe even struggling a bit. But he told us he was a millionaire. They found the canceled checks next. Going through Robert's personal files in his condo, Jennifer discovered a folder labeled estate planning. Inside were copies of checks written to Gerald Weston over the past 12 years. Hundreds of dollars at a time, adding up to thousands. Payment for legal services, for drafting documents, for maintaining the estate plan. An estate plan based on assets that didn't exist. He paid an attorney to create legal documents protecting wealth he never had. Jennifer sighed. That's insane. But Marcus was looking at something else. A handwritten note in Robert's planner, dated 6 months before his death. It read, "Update inventory, Scottsdale appraisal increased. Fidelity account plus $180,000 sent to Weston." He was maintaining the fiction, Marcus said, right up until he died. The question became, what else he knew? They started with Diane, Robert's ex-wife. Jennifer tracked her down in Portland and called her on a Saturday afternoon. Diane was cordial but cautious. She expressed sympathy about Robert's death. When Jennifer carefully broached the subject of Robert's finances, Diane's tone shifted. "I knew Robert had money issues," Diane said. "During our marriage, he always talked about investments and properties, but I never saw evidence of real wealth. When we divorced, I asked for documentation of assets. He provided some papers, but my attorney thought they seemed inconsistent. I ended up settling for a modest amount just to be done with it." "Did you think the documents were fake?" Jennifer asked. A long pause. "I thought Robert was good at presenting himself as more successful than he was. I didn't pursue it because I wanted out of the marriage. Looking back, maybe I should have asked harder questions." After the call, Jennifer felt a strange mix of validation and dread. Someone else had noticed. Someone else had doubted. Next, they spoke to Carol, Robert's sister. Carol was 71, living in a retirement community in Tuck. She'd always been close to Robert. Or so Jennifer thought. When Marcus explained what they'd discovered about the estate, Carol was quiet for a long time. "I'm not entirely surprised," she finally said. "You're not?" Robert always exaggerated. Even as a kid, he'd tell stories that were partly true and partly fantasy. He wanted people to be impressed. As he got older, he got better at it. More detailed, more convincing. "Did he ever tell you he had millions in investments?" He implied it. He'd mention deals and properties. I'd ask questions and he'd give vague answers. After a while, I stopped asking. I figured either it was true and he was private about it, or it wasn't true and confronting him would just cause a fight. Marcus felt a flicker of anger. "So you just let him lie?" Carol's voice hardened. "He was my brother. What was I supposed to do? Call him a liar to his face? Demand he prove his wealth? That's not how families work. But that was exactly the problem." Jennifer thought after the call ended. That was how the lie survived. No one wanted to call it out. No one wanted to be the one to shatter the illusion. They found the Scottsdale documents in a box in Robert's closet. Architectural drawings of a retail plaza, renderings showing palm trees and fountains, a site plan, a partnership agreement dated 1997, naming Robert Hartwell and a man named David Morrison as equal partners. Marcus spent 2 days trying to find David Morrison. He searched public records, LinkedIn, real estate, databases. Nothing. He found a few David Morrisons in Arizona, called them all. None had ever heard of Robert Hartwell. He called the architectural firm whose name appeared on the renderings. The firm existed. They'd designed the Scottsdale Plaza. But when Marcus asked about Robert Hartwell, the receptionist pulled up their records and said, "I'm sorry, we have no one by that name in our client database." "But he showed us these drawings," Marcus said, more to himself than to her. "He had your company's logo on them." "Sir, it's possible someone obtained our publicly available project images and created their own documents. We can't control how our completed projects are represented." Marcus realized what had happened. Robert had found a real development project, collected publicly available information about it, and inserted himself into the narrative. He'd created a fake partnership agreement. He'd told his family he was an investor, and for 27 years, no one had verified it. The forgeries became more elaborate as they kept looking. Jennifer found tax returns in Robert's files, fake tax returns showing income from rental properties and partnership distributions. She found appraisal reports on letterhead from actual appraisal companies, but when she called those companies, they had no record of appraising properties for Robert Hartwell. He built an entire parallel financial reality. Jennifer sighed. On paper, he was a wealthy investor. In actual life, he was a broker with credit card debt. But he maintained it for decades, Marcus added. That takes effort, constant effort. They started to build a timeline. The first fabricated document they could find dated to 1997, the Scottsdale Partnership Agreement. That was right after Linda had asked where the $200,000 was coming from. Robert had apparently decided the easiest answer was to create documentation showing he had invested money he didn't actually have. From there, the fake documents multiplied. In the early 2000s, Robert started creating fake investment account statements. After Linda died in 2005, the fabrications accelerated. New properties, new accounts, larger balances. Every few years, Robert would update his estate inventory with his attorney, adding new assets or increasing values of existing ones. The attorney, Gerald Weston, never questioned it because Robert was a professional, a longtime client, and he brought documentation. "It's like Dad was playing a game," Jennifer said one evening, sitting in Robert's condo surrounded by boxers of papers, except no one else knew they were playing. Marcus was reading through Robert's old day planners. Maybe that's the point. Maybe the game only worked if people believed it. The question of why Robert did this consumed Jennifer for weeks. She couldn't understand the psychology of it. What did he gain? She started researching compulsive lying, financial fraud, pathological behavior. She spoke to a psychologist who specialized in white-collar deception. Some people construct false narratives about wealth as a way of managing shame or feelings of inadequacy, the psychologist explained. If your father grew up with modest means, but had ambitions of wealth, he may have created a fictional version of himself that achieved those ambitions. Over time, that fiction became part of his identity. But he lied to his own children. Yes. And that suggests the lie wasn't just for others. It was for himself. He needed to believe he was the person he claimed to be. Jennifer thought about her father's life, a man who drew elaborate floor plans of mansions as a child, who talked constantly about deals and investments, who seemed to need others to see him as successful. "Do you think he ever planned to tell us the truth?" Jennifer asked. The psychologist considered this. In cases like this, there's often a magical thinking component. The person believes that eventually, the fictional reality will become real, that they'll make the big deal or the smart investment that will retroactively justify all the lies. They're always on the verge of making it true. But it never happens. No, it never does. Marcus was approaching the mystery from a different angle. He wanted to know if Robert had used the fake documents for any purpose beyond maintaining a facade with his family. He requested Robert's credit reports. What he found was troubling. In 2018, Robert had applied for a significant personal loan from a private lender. As part of the application, he'd provided a personal financial statement showing net worth of over $5 million. The statement listed the Scottsdale property, the investment accounts, the partnership interest. The loan was approved. Robert borrowed $250,000 at a relatively low interest rate, using his claimed assets as justification for creditworthiness. He'd never fully repaid the loan. At the time of his death, he still owed $190,000. He didn't just lie to us, Marcus told Jennifer. He used to fake documents to borrow money. That's fraud. Yes, that's fraud. They found another instance. In 2020, during his divorce from Diane, Robert had submitted a financial declaration to the court. It showed limited liquid assets, but referenced investment properties and accounts that supposedly couldn't be easily liquidated. The strategy apparently worked. Diane settled for less than she might have pursued if she'd known Robert's actual financial situation. Every time someone was about to look too closely, Jennifer's side dad had documents ready to show them. The full picture was becoming clear, and it was uglier than either of them wanted to admit. Their father hadn't just been a fantasist. He'd been actively deceptive, using fabricated documents to manipulate financial outcomes, to avoid scrutiny, to maintain control over how others perceived him, and he'd left them to clean up the mess. The legal complications started in March. The private lender who'd loaned Robert $250,000 contacted Marcus as the executor of the estate. They wanted their money back. Marcus explained that the estate didn't have anywhere near enough liquid assets to repay the loan. The lender's attorney sent a letter. The loan had been secured based on fraudulent financial statements. If the estate couldn't pay, the lender would pursue legal action against the estate and potentially against Robert's heirs. Can they do that? Jennifer asked when Marcus showed her the letter. I don't know. Maybe the loan was Dad's debt, but if he obtained it through fraud. They consulted with an estate attorney, not Gerald Weston, but someone recommended by a colleague. The attorney, a woman named Patricia Ruiz, reviewed the documents. This is complicated, Ruiz said. Your father's estate is technically liable for his debts. However, if the debt was obtained fraudulently, there are potential defenses, but there's also risk. If a court determines that you, as beneficiaries, should have known about the fraud or benefited from it, they could potentially hold you liable. We didn't know, Jennifer said. We had no idea. I believe you, but you'll need to prove that. And you'll need to decide how to proceed with the estate. If you accept the inheritance, you accept responsibility for resolving these claims. Marcus and Jennifer left the meeting feeling trapped. They could disclaim the inheritance, walk away from everything. But that felt like abandoning their father's memory, admitting publicly that he was a fraud, or they could fight the legal battles, try to protect what little real assets existed, and risk being personally exposed to his debts. There's another problem, Marcus said that evening. What about other people Dad lied to? What if there were other lenders, other people who made decisions based on his fake documents? Jennifer hadn't considered that. How would we even find them? I don't think we can, but they might find us. 2 weeks later, they got their answer. A man named Thomas Brennan called Marcus. Brennan identified himself as a former business associate of Robert's. I heard about Robert's passing, Brennan said. I'm sorry. He and I discussed a potential real estate investment opportunity a few years back. I ultimately decided not to pursue it, but I'm calling because I'm curious about something. Robert had mentioned to me that he was a partner in a development company, Hartwell Morrison, I think it was called. Is that company still operational? Marquez felt his stomach drop. Why are you asking? Well, I've been thinking about similar opportunities, and if the company is still active, I might be interested in learning more about it, Marcus explained. As gently as he could, Tad Hartwell Morrison Development didn't exist, that Robert's partnership claims were not accurate. There was a long silence on the phone. I see, Brennan finally said. His voice had changed. I appreciate you telling me. I need to think about this. He hung up. Dad was telling business associates about the fake assets, Marcus said to Jennifer afterward. He was using them in his professional life. How many people did he lie to? Neither of them had an answer. The inheritance fight truly began in April. Jennifer and Marcus formally accepted their roles as deciding they needed to see the process through, whatever the consequences. They filed a probate case in Sacramento County Superior Court. They submitted an amended estate inventory showing the actual assets. The condo with its mortgage, the car, the real bank accounts, personal effects, total value, after debts, approximately $460,000. But they also had to disclose the complications. The outstanding loan obtained through fraud, the possibility of additional claims, the existence of fabricated documents that had been used in various contexts over decades. The probate judge assigned to the case, Judge Martin Cordero, called a hearing. Jennifer, Marcus, and their attorney, Patricia Ruiz, appeared. So did the attorney for the private lender. Judge Cordero reviewed the situation. "This is an unusual case," he said. "The court needs to understand the scope of the decedent's misrepresentations. Were they limited to family conversations, or was there actionable fraud?" The lender's attorney spoke up. "Your Honor, my client loaned money in good faith based on financial documents provided by Mr. Hartwell. Those documents were false. That's textbook fraud. The estate is not defending the accuracy of those documents," Ruiz responded, "but the estate's actual assets are limited. My clients, Mr. Hartwell's children, had no knowledge of their father's fabrications. They should not be held personally liable for debts they didn't incur." Judge Cordero looked at Marcus and Jennifer. "Did either of you benefit from the loan your father obtained?" Marcus shook his head. "No, Your Honor. We don't even know what he used the money for." That became the next investigation. What had Robert done with $250,000? Marcus spent days going through Robert's bank records from 2018 onward. The loan money had been deposited in August 2018. Over the following 6 months, it had been spent in ways that were both mundane and mysterious. $40,000 had gone to paying down credit card balances, $30,000 to home improvements on the condo, $20,000 to a luxury vacation to Italy that Robert had taken alone. The rest had been spent in increments, restaurants, golf, car payments, everyday expenses. He borrowed $250,000 and just spent it on living expenses. Jennifer sighed he didn't invest it. He didn't build anything. He just used it to maintain his lifestyle. But there was one transaction that stood out. In October 2018, Robert had written a check for $35,000 to someone named Alicia Hartwell. "Who is Alicia Hartwell?" Marcus asked. Jennifer didn't recognize the name. They searched public records. Alicia Hartwell, age 43, lived in Fresno, California. No obvious connection to their family. Marcus called the phone number listed in the records. A woman answered. "Hello, this is Marcus Hart. I'm calling about my father, Robert Hartwell. He passed away recently, and I found a record of a payment he made to someone named Alicia Hart. I'm trying to understand." "I'm Alicia," the woman interrupted. Her voice was tight, "and I don't want to talk about Robert. I understand this might be difficult, but I'm the executor of his estate, and I'm trying to account for... He was my father too, Marcus Frusse." "What?" "Robert Hartwell was my father. He's your father, apparently. That makes us half siblings. And the $35,000 you're asking about, that was part of the deal." Marcus called Jennifer immediately. They arranged a video call with Alicia that evening. Alicia Hartwell appeared on screen, a woman with dark hair and tired eyes. She lived in a modest apartment in Fresno. She worked as a dental assistant. "I'm going to tell you this once," Alicia said, "then I don't want to talk about it again." She explained. Her mother, Sandra Hartwell, Rome, had worked as a secretary at a real estate office in Modesto in the early 1980s. Robert Hartwell was a young broker there. They had an affair. Sandra got pregnant. Robert was already married to Linda. "My mother told Robert about the pregnancy," Alicia said. "He didn't want anything to do with it. He gave her $5,000 and told her never to contact him again. She took the money and moved to Fresno. That's where I was born." "He never acknowledged you?" Jennifer asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Not for 40 years. I grew up knowing my father's name, knowing where he was, but he wanted nothing to do with me. My mother died in 2016. I was going through her things and found old letters, Documentation. I contacted Robert in 2017. What did he say? At first he denied it, then I sent him copies of the letters. Proof. He admitted it, but asked me not to tell anyone. He said it would destroy his reputation, hurt his family. He offered me money to keep quiet. $35,000, Marcus said. Yes. Over 2 years. The first payment in 2018. The rest in installments. I took it because I needed it. I had student loans, medical debt, but I felt dirty taking it, like I was being paid to not exist. Jennifer felt sick. Did he ever try to have a relationship with you? Alicia laughed bitterly. No. The money was the relationship. We met for coffee twice. He asked about my life, but didn't really care about the answers. Mostly he wanted to make sure I wouldn't tell anyone. That's all I was, to him, a problem to be managed. After the call, Jennifer and Marcus sat in silence. Finally, Jennifer said, "We have a sister. Half-sister." Still, Marcus was processing something else. Dad used the loan money to pay her off. He borrowed $250,000, partly so he could keep his secret daughter quiet. Jennifer felt the weight of it. Their father hadn't just lied about money. He'd lied about family, about his entire life. "What else don't we know?" she asked. The answer came from an unexpected source. In May, they received a letter from a woman named Margaret Chun, an accountant who had worked with Robert years earlier. The letter was brief. "I heard about Robert's passing and the complications with his estate. There's something you should know about 2005. I debated reaching out, but you deserve the truth. Please call me." Jen recalled. Margaret Chun was now in her 70s, retired, living in Folsom. "I worked as a contract accountant for several real estate brokers in the mid-2000s," S.E. Chun explained. "Robert hired me in 2004 to help with his taxes and bookkeeping. I worked with him for about 2 years. What happened in 2005? Jennifer asked. "Your mother died in 2005, correct?" "Yes. In April. Robert came to me in June of that year. He was dealing with the financial aftermath of your mother's medical expenses. He'd maxed out credit cards, taken out loans. He was in over his head. He asked me to help him restructure his finances. Did you, E? Triet. But Robert also asked me to create documentation showing his financial situation was better than it was. He wanted statements that showed higher income, more assets. He said he needed them for estate planning purposes, to show his children they'd be taken care of." Jennifer's breath caught. "You created fake documents for him?" "No. I refused. I told him what he was asking for was fraud. He got angry, accused me of not understanding his situation. We had a falling out. He stopped using my services, but he still needed the fake documents. I assume he found another way to create them, or did it himself." Jennifer thought about the timeline. Their mother died in 2005. Robert asked his accountant to create fake financial documents later that year. When she refused, he apparently decided to do it himself, and he kept doing it for the next 19 years. "Why are you telling us this now?" Jennifer asked. "Because I've felt guilty for 20 years, June said. "I knew Robert was going down a bad path. I should have reported him, but I didn't want to destroy his career, hurt his family. I told myself it wasn't my business. Now I hear his estate is a mess, and I realize my silence was part of the problem." After the call, Jennifer sat with this new information. Her father's fake financial empire had started with grief and debt. He'd been drowning after Linda's death, unable to maintain the successful image he'd cultivated. Instead of admitting the truth, he'd doubled down on the lie. Mom's death broke something in him, Jennifer said to Marcus. Or maybe it revealed something that was always there. Marcus had been thinking about it too. "You know what's sad? If he'd just been honest, we would have understood. We would have helped, but he couldn't let anyone see him struggle." The probate case dragged on through the summer. The private lender continued pushing for repayment. Patricia Ruiz negotiated on behalf of the estate. Eventually, they'd reached a settlement. The lender would receive $75,000 from the estate, accepting that as partial payment. The rest of the debt would be discharged. It meant the estate's value would be diminished, but at least Marcus and Jennifer wouldn't be personally liable. Other complications emerged. Harold Weston, the attorney who'd prepared Robert's fake estate plan, faced questions from the state bar about his failure to verify his client's assets. Weston maintained he'd acted in good faith, that Robert had deceived him too. The bar ultimately issued a letter of reprimand but no serious sanctions. Thomas Brannan, the business associate who'd called about Hartwell Morrison Development, never pursued any legal action. But Marcus learned, through mutual contacts, that Brennan had been considering investing money with Robert shortly before Robert's death. The fake partnership claims had been part of Robert's pitch to appear credible. Dad almost scammed someone, Marcus said. If he'd lived longer, he might have. Jennifer had been thinking about Alicia. She reached out via email, tentatively, not sure if Alicia would respond. To her surprise, Alicia replied. They started corresponding. Carefully, awkwardly, but genuinely. In August, Jennifer and Alicia met for coffee in Fresno. It was strange, looking at someone who shared her father's features. Tisame nose, the same smile. I don't know if I want a relationship, Alicia said. I'm still angry at him, and I don't know how to feel about suddenly having siblings. I understand, Jennifer said. I'm angry too, at Dad, at the lies, at all of it. Do you think he loved us? Alicia asked. Any of us? Jennifer didn't have an answer. She thought about her childhood, her father's attention, the way he'd show up to her school events and talk about building her future. She'd felt loved. But now she wondered if she'd been loved as herself, or as part of the image Robert needed to maintain. I think he loved the idea of being a good father, Jennifer finally said. I don't know if he knew how to actually be one. The condo sold in September for $435,000. After paying off the mortgage, the settlement to the lender, estate taxes, probate fees, and Gerald Weston's final bill, the remaining estate was worth approximately $280,000. Split between Jennifer and Marcus, they each received $140,000. It was a meaningful sum of money, enough to make a difference in their lives, but it was nowhere near the $8 million inheritance they'd briefly believed was theirs. You know what's strange? Marcus said as they signed the final papers. I'm not even disappointed about the money. I'm disappointed about who Dad turned out to be. Jennifer felt the same way. The inheritance she'd really lost wasn't financial. It was the memory of her father as someone honest, someone trustworthy. In October, 6 months after Robert's death, Jennifer wrote a letter she never sent. She addressed it to her father. In it, she asked the questions she'd never get to ask him. Why did he lie? When did it start? Did he ever plan to tell the truth? Did he understand what the lies would do to them? She wrote about the inheritance. Not the fake one, but the real one. The inheritance of doubt, shame, and broken trust he'd left behind. She wrote about Alicia, about how it felt to discover a sister she'd never known, a whole piece of their father's life that had been hidden. She wrote about the grief of losing him twice, onset or death, and once to the truth. At the end of the letter, she wrote, I would have loved you anyway, even if you'd failed, even if you'd struggled, even if you'd never been wealthy, I would have loved you. Did you know that? Did you ever believe that? She sealed the letter in an envelope and put it in a drawer. She thought maybe someday she'd burn it, or maybe she'd keep it forever. It didn't really matter. The questions in it had no answers. Marcus took a different approach to processing it all. He became quietly obsessed with understanding financial fraud, reading books about con artists and pathological liars, trying to fit his father into a framework that made sense. The thing about con artists, he told Jennifer one evening, is they usually target strangers. Family cons are different, harder, because you have to maintain the lie every day with people who know you. Dad was living two lives, Jennifer said. The one in reality and the one on paper. And the one on paper was the one he wanted to be real. By December, the estate was finally closed. Jennifer and Marcus had fulfilled their duties as the debts were settled. The assets were distributed. Legally, it was over, but emotionally, it wasn't. Jennifer found herself looking at other families and wondering what secrets they were keeping. She'd become suspicious of surface narratives, of people who presented their lives as too successful, too perfect. Marcus struggled with his own relationship to money. He deposited his inheritance in a savings account and couldn't bring himself to spend it. It felt tainted somehow, built on the ruins of his father's lies. They'd both started therapy, separately, but dealing with similar issues. Betrayal, trust, the psychological impact of discovering your parents systematically deceived you. Do you think Dad knew he was hurting us? Jennifer asked her. Therapist, one session. I can't speak to your father's mind, the therapist said. But often, people engaged in long-term deception become so focused on maintaining the lie that they lose sight of the harm it causes. The lie becomes its own imperative. So he didn't think about us at all. Think he thought about you constantly, but he thought about you in relation to the false narrative he'd constructed. In his mind, he was protecting you, providing for you. He didn't allow himself to consider that the truth might matter more than the illusion. On what would have been Robert's 69th birthday in January 2026, Jennifer and Marcus met at a restaurant in Sacramento. They'd started having monthly dinners, a way of maintaining family, despite everything. Over dinner, they talked about other things. Genneva's daughter, Marcus's new job, normal life, but eventually, the conversation returned to their father. I've been thinking about Alicia, Marcus said, about whether we should tell people about her. Aunt Carol, Dad's old friends. What would be the point? Jennifer asked. The truth, I guess. Dad spent his life hiding things. Maybe we should stop hiding them. Jennifer considered this, or maybe we respect her privacy. Let her decide if she wants to be known as Robert Hartwell's daughter. They sat with that for a moment. Then Marcus said, I went through Dad's condo one last time before the estate closed. I found something I didn't show you. He pulled out his phone and showed Jennifer a photo. It was a picture of a handwritten note in Robert's handwriting. T-note, read Scottsdale, property research, actual properties for sale, update valuation to current market rate, fidelity accountigist for market gains Q3. Review all documents before meeting with Westan. It was dated 2 months before Robert died. He was still doing it, Marcus said. Right up to the end, he was maintaining the fake portfolio, updating it, keeping the lie current. Jennifer stared at the note. There was something horrible about it. The dedication, the attention to detail. Her father, months before his death, carefully adjusting fictional assets to match market trends, ensuring his fake empire remained plausible. Do you think he believed it himself by then? Jennifer asked. I don't know. Maybe that's the scariest part. Maybe he'd told the lie so many times he couldn't tell the difference anymore. They finished dinner in silence. Outside, Sacramento was cold and dark. They hugged goodbye in the parking lot. I miss him, Jennifer said, suddenly. I hate that I miss him, but I do. I know, Marcus said. Me too. Jennifer drove home thinking about inheritance, about what parents leave their children, money, property, genes, memories, but also patterns, fears, wounds. Her father had left her an inheritance of documents that pointed to wealth that didn't exist, but he'd also left her something else, a deep wariness of appearances. I need to verify, to question, to look beneath surfaces. She thought about her own daughter, about what she would leave her, what truths, what lies. She wanted to promise herself she'd be honest, always. But she knew it was more complicated than that. Everyone constructed narratives about themselves. Everyone presented an edited version of their life. The question was, how far would you go to maintain the image? What would you sacrifice for the appearance of success? Her father had sacrificed everything. His integrity, his relationships, his peace, all for a fiction he couldn't sustain but couldn't abandon. A week later, Jennifer received a call from Gerald Weston. He sounded older on the phone, tired. I wanted to let you know I'm retiring, Weston said. the state bar situation, and frankly, the situation with your father's estate has made me reconsider my practice. I understand, Jennifer said. I keep thinking about it. How I never questioned him. I was his attorney for 12 years. I should have seen something. He fooled all of us. Yes, but I was supposed to be the professional, the objective party, and I just accepted everything he told me. Weston paused. I've spent 40 years as an attorney. I've always prided myself on thoroughness, but your father showed me how easy it is to be deceived when someone is determined to deceive you. After they hung up, Jennifer thought about that. How easy it is to be deceived. She thought about all the times her father had mentioned his investments, his properties, his success, how she'd believed him, because why wouldn't she? He was her father. Fathers didn't systematically lie to their children about their entire financial life, except when they did. In February, almost a year after Robert's death, Marcus received a letter from the Sacramento County District Attorney's Office. They were reviewing the circumstances of Robert's loan fraud and deciding whether to pursue charges posthumously against the estate or any other parties. It was a formality. Robert was dead, and there was no evidence Jennifer or Marcus had been complicit. But it meant going through everything again, providing documents, making statements. It never ends, Marcus said to Jennifer. His lies keep rippling out. But eventually, the DA's office concluded there was no basis for criminal charges beyond those that died with Robert. The case was closed. By spring, Jennifer and Marcus had settled into a new normal. They'd each used part of their inheritance. Jennifer had paid down her mortgage. Marcus had invested his, this time, with verified real accounts. They stayed in touch with Alicia, sporadically. It wasn't quite a sibling relationship, but it was something. A tentative connection built on shared experience of their father's deceptions. One afternoon in March, exactly a year after learning the truth about the inheritance, Jennifer drove to her father's grave. She hadn't visited since the funeral. The headstone was simple. Robert James Hartwell, 1954 to 2024. Beloved father. She stood there for a long time, looking at the words, beloved father. Was he? Could he be beloved when he'd lied so systematically? Could you love someone and fundamentally not know them? Jennifer didn't have answers, but she realized she didn't need them. She could hold contradictory truths. Her father had loved her in his broken way, and he had also betrayed her. Both things were real. The inheritance she'd received wasn't the one he'd planned to give her. It wasn't $8 million in properties and accounts. It wasn't even the modest $400,000 in actual assets. The real inheritance was harder to quantify. It was the knowledge that appearances deceive, that success is often fiction, that even people you trust completely can be strangers to you. It was the understanding that you can spend your whole life building something, your reputation, an image, a legacy, and it can dissolve the moment the truth comes to light. Her father had worked for decades to create a portrait of himself as wealthy, successful, secure. He'd maintained elaborate documentation, told consistent stories, convinced even professionals of his claims, and in the end, all of it had been erased by a few phone calls to banks and title companies. The empire of paper collapsed under the weight of a simple question. Is this real? Jennifer left the cemetery as the sun was setting. She thought about calling Marcus, maybe meeting for dinner, but instead she drove home to her family. A real life, the things she could touch and verify and know were true. Behind her, Robert Hartwell's grave was silent, keeping whatever final secrets he'd taken to it. The man who'd built a fortune on paper and left nothing but questions in reality. The inheritance records had shown assets that were never real, but the damage, the fractured trust, the permanent doubt, those were real enough. And unlike the fictional properties and phantom accounts, those inheritances couldn't be dissolved or distributed or closed in probate. They were permanent. They were the truest thing her father had left behind.